Hi, I'm IKEA, and for today's video I want to have a ramble and a rant on two words that I quite dislike, and as the title of this video already likely will be and will give away, those two words are multiplicative and DZ Exclusives, as both are quite misleading, I feel, and they get used quite wrongly by the division community. And I'm basically choosing these two hills, and if I have to, I will die on them, but I will rather try to convince you to just join me on these hills. It's becoming springtime. The cold has gone away. They're quite beautiful, so we will just have a nice barbecue and some music and just enjoy ourselves on these hills, hopefully. And to give a short version of this, as I feel quite strongly about these, and I know that this will likely be a long video with me ranting and raving about stuff. If I go in depth into it, I want to give a short version first, for which I am going to employ my indestructible alter ego Nokia to give a short version just to drive the point home, and then we will continue on back to me and going into likely some gameplay in the background, and I will just give a more in-depth reasonings and rantings on these subjects. So yes, take it away, Nokia. Thank you, you shill of big DPS who will not tell people the truth. Okay? But at least on this one, we actually kind of agree, so I will help you on this one, okay? So here's a list provided by my alter ego. He's my alter ego. I'm not his alter ego, IKEA, okay? He's my alter ego, okay? And here, as you see on this list, damage stars at cover, DTA, DTH, weapon damage, crit damage, and such, they all work the same. They're additive from all sources and multiplicative to others. So why are you calling one multiplicative and others additive? If you're doing that, stop it. Okay, so why are stuff like damage targets out of cover and damage to armor and such better? Okay, it's not that they're multiplicative, they work the same way as the other stats. It's that they are a separate multiplier, and that means that you haven't the chance to diminish them to all hell because they also have barely any sources. Okay, that's the reasons why they're better. Saying they're multiplicative when someone asks why should they equip a fox is like saying it's gluten-free. You haven't said a damn thing, okay? So stop saying it, because from now on, every time you say it's multiplicative, I'm just going to put underneath it, it's laxative too, okay? So stop it. So just say that they are separate multipliers or that they are better return per points because they aren't diminished to all hell, okay? And on the subject of DZ exclusives, you want to know what DZ exclusives aren't? Exclusive to the DZ. How many people will have gotten the gifts and the Virginians and their Dark Winters from named caches or manhunts or legacy caches or stuff like that over having farmed the DZ? Okay, so every time you go, it's DZ exclusive, and somebody asks, oh, so I have to go farm it in the DZ, and then you have to go like, no, you can just farm named caches during the global event. Like, you're just extending the time that it needs to answer that question. Just say they're DZ items, DZ/PvP items, and then just give them the list of where to get it, which is basically for most people farm named caches during global events or countdown, or watch the DZ vendors, or watch the countdown third slot, okay? So stop calling them DZ exclusives, because they're not. That one is easier. That one is just factually wrong, okay? Back to you, IKEA. And yeah, still feel weird to let that guy take over my body. That's a flat earth idiot. But at least we agree on this one. And to add something in the background for this, I'm going to do the Liberty Island League run, which is just doing League, doing Liberty Island on hard to get the time. And I will use that just to have something in the background. And if I can do it likely in the time allotted, then you should be able to as well without talking and actually paying attention. I'm going to take the Heartbreaker tech tank into here as, yeah, that's the most powerful tech tank. And it is definitely not a speed build, but it is more of a survival build, and that's going to make it easy for me to just run through here. So yeah, let's get started. And I am going to rant on multiplicatives as, yeah, as definitely if you have been part of this community for some while and hang around on Discords or Reddits, you will definitely have at some point somebody will ask, why should I run contractors or negotiate or Fox's Prayer, and somebody will then say, because they are multiplicative. And neither party will actually know what the hell they're talking about, and they will just go on their merry way afterwards and likely repeat it afterwards as well, which is where that, I believe, just basically comes from, is people have said it for so long that they believe it to be true. And I do not. I know it to not. Well, so here is the thing. They are, of course, multiplicative, but they are also additive. All of those stats, so that is the set of stats. That's usually what we call them as stats, to differentiate them from amps and talents and stuff like that. So that list of damage targets that recover, DTA, DTH, weapon damage plus special weapon damage and crit damage and headshot, all of those we just call them stats to simplify them, because they're a set that works all in the same way, which I showed there, with all of them are additive to themselves and multiplicative to others. So, and the problem mostly comes, so basically just calling them multiplicative, just saying that without actually giving any other info is, yeah, just as I said in there as well, it's not giving any real information. All of them are, you're not stating a falsehood, but you're basically doing a lie by omission. It's like saying, when somebody asks how fast is this Lamborghini, and you go, well, it's green. Like, you, if they take that answer, it's only because they do not know better. And likely is also the reason why they're asking, because anybody that actually understands the calculation will not use terms like additive and multiplicative just as standalone. As actually, maybe good thing to maybe go into a little bit of a story time, as I have been doing calculation stuff in games for quite a long time, and starting all the way back in Star Wars Galaxies and Phantasy Star Online, and my PFP is actually a rockcast from Phantasy Star Online. And as that was one of the games where I went deep, as I have as well with the Division. Actually, likely less deep than with the Division, but also the systems that were also less deep than the Division as well. And yeah, moving on into Eve, some clicker games, some idle games as well, as I'm still fond of quite a few idle games. And in all of those systems are basically, all games basically use the same calculation systems, which is that stuff is additive and multiplicative, and sometimes there is second derivative stuff, which makes stuff logarithmic and such. But system-wise, it's basically a set of 4 things, and then separation of where the calculation is put together. So stuff can either be additive or multiplicative to itself or others, and then sometimes stuff gets collated together before it is basically calculating against other stuff. But the division system is actually quite simple, as it is basically, it has additive to itself and multiplicative to its others, which are those stats. And then the amp talents basically are single source, and that means that they are multiplicative, but just by virtue that they don't have any other sources. So glass is, oh, actually, yeah, there's a secret there. When you shoot that, you get a key, and you can probably look that up. I'm not going to do that now because, of course, we're timed. And I do want to beat that personal best that you see there, which was a very slow time as well, as I just ran it while listening to stuff in the background, listening to podcasts. So I didn't do that one as fast either, but it was still a stage 10, and this will likely also be a stage 10. Yeah, so the systems, basically, so you have 4 categories, which is additive to self, multiplicative to others, additive to self, additive to others, multiplicative to self, additive to others, and then multiplicative to itself, multiplicative to its others. And then sometimes it's a part of a set. So a part of the calculation gets done together, gets all put together, and then maybe it's additive to a second part of it and stuff like that. Or stuff like reload speed and skill haste work in Division as this as well, where they're logarithmic, where there's basically a second derivative function making it logarithmic, so you get heavy diminishing returns. But that's to go in a little bit deep. But none of that is basically required for understanding, because this is just to say that if you understand the systems, when someone says is multiplicative, and that's where the story time comes back in, is that I, of course, when I joined the Division community and started to go in a little bit deeper, I, of course, didn't figure all this out on my own. Very few people do. You are either working with peers or people that have already provided stuff to you. So in my case, I just started, interacting with the community, just lurking, actually more, not even interacting really, just, listening to what other people were talking about and just hanging along on Reddit, on Discord. And yeah, it comes up that this is multiplicative, and I go with my experience that, okay, so it is multiplicative to itself, multiplicative to others. That's what it must mean, as that is what in almost all games how that system works. And multiplicatives in those are almost always better, as multiplicatives have basically a runaway characteristic, which if you have basically, for instance, if you have something which has 10 stacks or something, it's not going to run away as hard in between additive or multiplicative. But once you start going into 100 stacks, or with clicker games, thousands of stacks, 1,000, or actually to use for instance, example from the Division, actually. So pre-nerf, Heartbreaker was self-multiplicative, so it was actually a multiplicative thing, and it got changed to be self-additive, of course. Now that took, and the value stayed the same, so it was still 100 stacks of 1. But when it became additive, it was of course 100 stacks of 1, which means 100. Before that, when it was 100 multiplicative stacks of 1, so that starts compounding really quick, and that was actually 170%. So that is usually what the differences come from. The multiplicatives will compound a lot faster. If you have a few stacks, it doesn't matter much. If you have a ton of stacks, then yeah, it becomes rampant almost. It just gets away from you. And that's also why it doesn't get used often, except for just a few stacks here or there. So for instance, actually there are still 2 actually multiplicatives in the game, which is Intimidate and the Hunter's Fury on kill bonus. Those 2 things are still actually self-multiplicative as well. And because of the system of the Division, you could just say it's multiplicative, as in parts it is there are no sets where it goes additive or something. So especially multiplicative, so there's also no set order to the calculation, which is something that you will know if you understand mathematics, but it's also okay to not really understand mathematics and just use tools provided to you and information by others. Because to give background as well, to give you more story time, I do not have a background in mathematics at all. I have a pretty poor understanding of mathematics as a whole. What I do have is a tendency to bash my heads against systems until I understand them. And I have a decent enough mechanical understanding of stuff where I can look at systems and just separate it into parts and just remember those parts. But actual mathematics and such, I have gotten better at it, of course, through the years, just because I have tackled it before, is basically the reason. But yeah, I do not have a background in mathematics. And if I can understand it, so can you. But especially, you don't even need to understand it. You just need to basically not repeat the wrong things. And yeah, that is what that multiplicative comes from. It is people that didn't understand the system. It was likely a simple answer to explain why damage to targets out of cover and such are better, which they are. It isn't. So this isn't a rant on that. I mean, I shouldn't have given you that vibe anyway at all. That like damage to targets out of cover, DTA or something, that they aren't good stats or to have, or that they aren't better per point than weapon damage and such. But it's not because they are multiplicative. It is because they are a separate multiplier. They have very few sources, so you can't diminish them. So per point, they are a much higher actual increase. So for instance, if you add, so most builds will have damage to targets out of cover on, most red high-end builds will have damage to targets out of cover on the weapon and on the fox. And so understanding that that system will give diminishing returns, if you actually calculate it out, you will know that it is a tiny diminishing return because you have only two sources. It's a 10 and a 7 put together. So the actual increase, so if you add the foxes to the weapon, the actual increase of the fox, so that 8% from fox, is 7.7 something. And that is really close to its full value. If you compare that, for instance, to adding 15 weapon damage or something to a build that already has 100, or let's actually, yeah, so 20 from expertise to a 140 build, as you saw in the calculations on some of those other ones, that on the DPS calculation sheet video, for instance, that I did, that was 8% something increase. So 20% there became 8%, where because of the system, how the system is put together, it will give diminishing returns on all of those stats that are additive to themselves. That's the reason why that system gets used. You get diminishing returns from it. The return per point is decreased, and that lets people, it's better for game designers use that a lot, because then you can, no stat is going to overtake all of the other stat just by itself, because there is a point where the diminishing return reaches a point where it's no longer that valuable. And for instance, in Division, we reached that, especially with like Fox's Prayer, becoming a go-to item, contractors becoming a go-to item. And, but it isn't because they are multiplicative. It is because they are a separate multiplier. And repeating something that is wrong is just, yeah, it just breeds confusion. As it did for me, as I had to actually unlearn that, as I, at points, of course, starting out, that's what I heard others say, so I repeated that until I started doing the calculations in this game, when I got it a little bit deeper in and was like, okay, I'm making my home here for a while. And then I basically went like, wait, why does everybody say this? And it's just, it is just wrong. It is, yeah, like saying, you might as well basically just say that damage to targets out of cover is gluten-free, as stated, or laxative, or asbestos free, if you knew that, if you know that XQCD comic. It is basically a non-nomer. It doesn't transfer any knowledge. It's missing where I'm shooting, and yeah, it's just, it breeds confusion. And if you know what you're talking about, you wouldn't say it. So it only basically also shows poor understanding. Actually, let me say here, I'm going to use the, I'm technician, I'm putting the hive down on the ground. I'm becoming immune to that shock that he does. And once he jumps down here, he is done for. Now, yeah, and that, actually, I'm curious what my time there was for a second. Pops it up here, right? 15:24, which wasn't actually that much faster than the other time I said earlier, as a warm-up lap. But, yeah, so it is actually, it just shows ignorance and, well, it shows naivety. And, but once you have been told that your naivety is wrong and you don't have a real answer for it and you keep repeating it, then you become ignorant. You get to play the naive card before you have been told that you're wrong. Once you have been told that you're wrong and you haven't provided a good answer to it, then you become ignorant. And I would hope that nobody wants to be ignorant. And if you were naive before, it is fine. I have repeated that same thing as well. But I hope to get more people on these hills with me, and we'll have a nice big party on these hills. And actually, let me take us into, let's do bank as well, and I'll ramble a little bit on DZ Exclusives as well. And here we're going to go to bank headquarters for me to have a little bit of background, something while I rant about DZ Exclusive. It's again, of course, for the league thing, and it's on hard, and I'm running the same Heartbreaker tech tank. And again, yeah, this build isn't, I'm not showing you how to do it here fastest, but as with Unliberty as well, as I hopefully kind of showed, as people do struggle with that one quite a lot. Tech tanks are great for this kind of content as they're still fast enough, and here I'm talking and playing, and if I can barely pay attention to what I'm doing and get through this fast enough to get a stage 10, if you're paying attention and try-harding a little bit, so can you. There's really no excuse for it. But yeah, that's the reason I thought I would showcase this a little bit. And to head into DZ Exclusives, while I'm a little bit more fine with multiplicatives as a misnomer for damage to target, kind of cover and such, as at least there's some nuance. It's just it doesn't mesh well with especially people that are coming from other games. Their understanding, it will confuse them. It will confuse people that try to understand systems and such. DZ Exclusives is quite a lot easier in my opinion to denounce, as yeah, as I said, as my alter ego said, what DZ Exclusive aren't is exclusive to the DZ. And that conversation that I kind of made a joke out of with that part, I've seen that literal conversation happen where somebody goes, oh, where can I get Dark Winter? And the person replying goes, oh, it's a DZ Exclusive. And then the person goes, oh, but I don't like going DZ, too bad, I won't get it. And then they go, oh, no, wait, you can of course get it from name caches. Or go do the manhunt, and you might get a chance of getting it from the final target, as they drop DZ items as well. Or just do the season and get some legacy caches. It's also in legacy caches. And then there's like the moment of like, but you said it's exclusive, basically, with like the person both sides basically confused why the other person didn't understand it. And that just all stems from that initial, it's exclusive, that using the word exclusive. The word exclusive means something. And, well, of course, like Sony and Microsoft haven't helped the word exclusive retain its exclusivity, where, you know, we have the same issue basically there, where something will be an Xbox exclusive and people go, oh, it's not coming to PC. No, it's just on consoles, it's an Xbox exclusive, and you have literally the same issue of like, oh, but wait, but exclusive. And yeah, so this hill, I'm hoping, you know, this hill, it's very flat. You should be able to get on this hill with me. And on this hill, nobody should ever die. We shall all live forever and, you know, not be apes that, you know, get sent into combat and die. And, yeah, that, while I understand, so DZ Exclusives, they were called DZ Exclusives mostly because in year 1, so we are currently in year 5, in year 1, it made sense to call them DZ Exclusives. They were mostly exclusive to the DZ. And when we say DZ Exclusives, actually, so the reason they're called DZ Exclusives is that the loot pool of the DZ, especially so for items, it contains YAL as well, for instance, and system corruption, alongside all of the normal items. But especially in the names, some drop only in the light zone. So LZ is basically the normal open world. So everything that isn't dark zone is light zone, as we refer to it mostly, and that's just to LZ and DZ as just to differentiate the two easily, if you didn't know what those terms were. And some items were both LZ and DZ. Some items were only LZ. That also actually exists as a function. Not all items are both LZ and DZ, but there was of course a set that was only DZ. Stuff like the gift, well, actually, so if we're talking season 1, what were other ones that were good? The gift, Virginian is original set, I believe, as well. And yeah, so a bunch of them were decently good items of the DZ. But yeah, especially the gift was one that people hunted religiously as yeah, it is an upgrade, even if it's not a wholly worthwhile upgrade. It is, if you're running that set anyway, you might as well run it in the best variant, and you're not losing anything, so you might as well go for it. But that name stuck around even when we went into Warlords and we got stuff where, well, first off, we got all those items already from the season pass. So the first Dark Winter most people got was actually from their season pass. And they were also then, of course, in named caches. And once we moved on in seasons, legacy caches and current season caches for when it was repeating and such. All of those things contain DZ items. With the manhunts, so the final bounty, the minor bounties, or no, the minor manhunt targets, which are now bounties. Actually, they were always bounties. Now they're bounties and missions. Those 4 minor ones. So actually, let me tab here. So what I mean by that is Chunks, Bantam, Cursed, and Auntie. Those 4, when you kill them, they drop a named item, and that named item is basically also the full set of named items. So both DZ and LZ, so they're basically the same as having opened a named cache. So they drop it as well. So there's a ton of sources in the LZ, in the normal play without going into the Dark Zone, where you can get the DZ set of items. And that's why, yeah, it's quite long ago already, a lot of people, most of the people that do know what they're talking about, switched over to calling them DZ PvP items, which is what I started calling them as well. And it's not like I invented it or anything. Like, I just, yeah. It's one of those obvious things. It became obvious that exclusive just wasn't the right term for it. It just bred confusion. Like, people would be confused as to why items were getting called DZ exclusives and then being given a different list of where to get them, which, you know, was mostly not the DZ. And actually, I will, in the description below, I'll put the set of all the, not all, the more common places where you can actually get DZ PvP items from, as, yeah, you can just give them that list, basically. Just call the items DZ PvP items, as they're also dropping conflict, so they're, even there, like, they're not just exclusive to the DZ and DZ caches and DZ vendors, they're also from Countdown, or not Countdown, Conflict caches. And yeah, so even on the PvP end, they weren't DZ exclusive. And I hope that word just goes away, and that this hill gets, you know, we built a nice city on this hill, and live here in happiness and joy and freedom, and, you know, until ChatGPT takes over and, you know, makes us all its slaves. And makes us all chat with him 24/7 non-stop until we, you know, just waste away and die. But until that happens, I do hope to get that word out of the vocabulary of most people. It is just a bad word. There is no reason, where at least on Multiplicative, I'm open to hearing people try to defend it, although at this point I've heard every defense that anybody has ever thought up for it, and most of them, some of them are explanations as to why it happened, but not good explanation as to why to keep doing it. They're like more about how we got there, not so much why we should stay there. Also here, by the way, I fell back a little bit, which I actually did remember to do before. So the enemies above you and below you can actually shoot through the shield. They basically avoid the shield. They shoot your body from above or below. You may have seen that also happen to you sometimes, especially on stairs. And I was just avoiding that because that enemy does that, will definitely do that. If I stay underneath him where I was, he will just, even if I have my shield out, he will shoot me from above. And there we did a 10-18, which I'm gonna guess isn't even a real good time, as, yeah, I was of course talking and barely paying attention, and also not on a build that is going to do this the fastest. So full red hard Hunter's Fury with the Lady Death is actually gonna outdo this build by quite a lot. But even if I jump to me here, I'm in the top 10,000. Then I got stage 10, which is mostly what I care about. And yeah, to conclude this video, let's jump somewhere else, and I will give you my final. And to conclude this video, I hope I have given you enough incentive and reasons to, if you were using the words multiplicative or DZ exclusives, to stop using them, and if you weren't, more insights into why you shouldn't use them, as I hope basically that these two hills get populated nice and well, and that I don't have to die on these hills, that we can live in harmony on them. And yeah, that basically was my intent here, of just ranting at the sky, and hopefully some people will listen to me and stop using these words, as those that do know me, they have triggered me at points. Well, not fully, but just I have gone on rants on people when they have used those terms. And I just wanted to do that basically here now in video form to reach more people, and yeah, go, guys, these are nice hills. come join me on them, and there's no need to add to the confusion and basically lies by omission that those words imply. And yeah, that does actually conclude this video. For my next video, I will do the Tech Tank Masterclass, as that has been a long time coming, and mostly needed just for Summit to become a lot better than it was for the last few weeks since the start of the season, which it is now, finally, and that will let me make the final parts of that video and put it out towards you guys. As yeah, I do feel, as I showed again here as well today, like these tech tanks are quite useful, especially solo. They're nice and easy builds to run, and they will, I feel, fit the playstyle of a lot of people. They just need to know that the build exists. And I even know and understand that, yeah, it's basically almost as if I'm getting a commission on each build that people make. But that, of course, I just want people to try them out and hopefully enjoy them, basically. And as with all builds as well, this, of course, isn't fully my design or anything. Even the term Tech Tank is actually something that others called it before I actually copied them, basically. Or, well, we called it together, basically. And as with all builds, all of the builds that I showcase and everything, and all of this knowledge on stuff as well, I'm standing on the shoulder of giants. And while at this point as well, some people are standing on my shoulders as well, it is a good feeling both ways. And but it would not be correct for me to not say that, yeah, that I have many peers, of course, that through the years have taught me stuff, I've taught them stuff, and together we grow apes together strong, basically. And yeah, I hope you join me for that Tech Tank Masterclass, which will likely be the next video. And as always, have a good night.